Hey guys, what's up? It's Tim here, and today is the day, my friends, because we're going to be talking about Avengers Endgame. I'm joined by my friend Lance here. He has a podcast called The Night Nerd that you guys all need to check out, but I'm really excited to have him on today because we met up like on New Year's Eve and we were like, dude, we need to do a collaboration. So this has been a while in the making, and I'm excited for Lance to be here today, and we actually talked our non-spoiler review over on his podcast, which is going to be up. So if you don't want spoilers, go check out his podcast first. I've got it linked right here, first thing in the description box below. So go there first. But if you've seen the movie or you're just a crazy person and you want it spoiled for yourself, hey, that's cool. Yeah. That's cool. We're here to do that today. But without further ado, let's just jump into it.
Let's do it. It's the Endgame.
Woo! So, man, let's just start right out. I'm just going to kind of go over the plot, and we'll stop and just kind of talk about it as we go. So, the movie starts out with Hawkeye training his daughter how to shoot a bow and arrow. Mm-hmm. And we kind of all know what's coming, right? Like, it just has that tone. You're like, oh, dude, they're about to get snapped.
Yeah.
They're about to get snapped.
I had some problems with that scene.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't tell you that. Because we do know what's coming.
Yes.
We know and for him to make the turn that we're going to see him make in the comics, he sees his family die. I feel like if he would have held one of them while they turned to dust, it would have been a lot more emotionally impactful.
Yes.
And I think it would have pushed his character more toward that turn instead of just, where is everybody? Where'd everybody go? Like, it doesn't seem as, it's gut-wrenching for us because we know, but I think if he would have held Laura or Nicholas, one of them as they turn to dust, I think it would have
been a little more emotionally impactful. Yeah, he just kind of looks away, and he comes back around the tree, and they're just gone.
He whistles or does whatever, and you're like, yeah, okay.
But they don't hide it what's about to happen either. Like, it's so obvious. Like, I was like, oh no.
And another thing on this, so it's not going to get into final thoughts, but they focus real hard on his ankle bracelet.
Yeah.
In Ant-Man and Wasp, we established that their parole is up before the snap.
Oh yeah.
So a little thing.
There's some plot holes. Yeah. We're gonna get into those plot holes. I guess before we go any further, I guess kind of we were talking before we even kind of filmed his podcast, but kind of the context we're coming from this from is I personally, it sounds like I liked this movie overall as a film maybe a little more than you did.
I think so.
So I think you guys are gonna benefit from getting to hear two sides of the same coin a little bit here as we go on, but so going further into it, so right after his family gets snapped, the Marvel logo appears. For me, this was one issue I did have right out of the gate. It's the song that starts playing over the Marvel logo is very happy and upbeat, and that just seemed kind of it kind of was like a kick because you just had this scene where Hawkeye loses his family, and then it's goes into a musical number.
Well, I think there's a reason for that.
Okay.
Marvel, from what we've seen and kind of read, is they definitely want you to know if you're on space or if you're on Earth. And the space stuff has the more upbeat, Ragnarok, Guardians of the Galaxy, has that rock soundtrack.
That makes sense.
It is a weird flip because when we see this next scene, it's a real somber scene too, but
yeah,
you got to know you're in space, so you got to have that happy music.
That's cool, man. I hadn't even thought about that because Ragnarok and all the Guardians movies just have that kind of rock soundtrack, that upbeat vibe. But yeah, so we go and the movie just pulls no punches right out of the gate. I'm thinking if Captain Marvel appears in this movie, when would you guys think they were going to appear? Probably an hour in. They're not going to just boom, she's right there. But nope, the movie literally starts out. Captain Marvel shows up as Tony Stark's about to die, and him and Nebula are on the ship, and she just picks up the ship and carries it back to Earth and sets it down literally on the lawn of the Avengers compound. So she takes them back, and then the rest of the remaining Avengers, after the snap, use Nebula to help locate Thanos' hideout, right then and there. So the movie, this is literally at this point not even 10 minutes in.
Oh yeah.
They go to Thanos' hideout, show up, he used the snap to erase the stones from existence, and the second snap has weakened him to the point where Thor just chops his head off without much effort at all, and then we jump 5 years forward in time, and so literally we're just 10 minutes in, and boom, that's where we're at. So we're 5 years forward in time, Thanos is dead.
Yeah.
10 minutes in.
It's a lot of stuff happens. You get your first Tony and Cap interaction since Civil War.
Yeah.
And
that's
Tony's dehydrated. I mean, he almost died, you know. Yeah. And he lost the kid. You know, that's the first thing he says is, "I lost the kid."
Yeah.
Or no, he says, I couldn't beat him. I've seen it 3 times, just so I'm a little versed.
Impressive.
He said, I couldn't beat him. Steve says, neither could I. And then he said, I lost the kid.
Yeah.
And so Tony is just physically, emotionally just broken. And, you know, he confronts his friend of, hey, man, I needed you.
Yeah.
You need me now, because Cap says, did he give you any clues, any coordinates? And he's like, no, I don't care that you need me now. I needed you. And so that was, again, something that we had been waiting for since Civil War. You know, so what is that, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah.
So, yeah, in that first 10 minutes, you get that. You get Captain Marvel. You get Thanos being beheaded and just everything. I mean, you get an entire movie's worth of plot in the first 10 minutes.
But just right there. Yeah, well, and that's a good point, because that was one of the things for me that I was looking forward to, because in Infinity War, we didn't get that interaction with Cap and Tony. So that'd been a long time coming. There's several films between Civil War and Endgame, but we finally got it. So moving on through the plot. So, you know, the 5-year time jump. So at this point, Captain Marvel, we've learned, is flown back out into space, and she's sporting a new haircut, might we add. Scott Lang finally gets out of the quantum realm, where he was left in the post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp. It was a rat, right, that stepped on the button and let him out. So we could possibly say that the rat saved the universe. From a certain perspective, right? So.
Well, but then Ken Jeong, right? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Let him out, which.
Yeah.
I know the Russos did Community. I love Community. Yeah. And we get another Community cameo later on in the film. But I feel like he's a big enough star at this point that it took away just a little bit.
Well, and they had him dressed up like pretty hilarious.
Like Stan Lee almost.
Yeah. And so he was like the security cam dude, just kind of like sitting there hanging out.
So him and the rat saved the universe.
Yes. And so Scott Lang shows up at the Avengers compound. And the fact that the quantum realm seemed to have shielded Scott from aging gives the rest of the Avengers the idea that time travel might be possible. So this leads the team to go and look for other members, and this led to a few developments in the lives of some of the characters that we find out about. I want to get your perspective on. So just right out of the gate, I want to ask you this. We haven't talked about this, so I'm legitimately super interested. So what did you think of the Thor we got in this movie, which was basically him becoming a beer-chugging, slob Thor? What do you think about that?
So I have something about all the characters, but I don't like Thor Ragnarok. It's probably one of my least favorite movies, because I like Shakespeare Thor, not Mallrats Thor. Okay. Nothing against Kevin Smith, but this Thor, who Iron Man even calls him later in the film, the Big Lebowski Thor. Yeah. I'm on board for it. You are. I have the same body type as Chris Hemsworth now, so I like that. I mean, I do think it's interesting because comedy from sadness, that's, comedy is what tragedy plus time equals comedy or whatever the old saying is. And that's one reason I didn't like Ragnarok, is he had a tragedy, but his comedy didn't come from that tragedy. It just came from, I know him from work. And here it was like, no, he suffered, he lost, he regrets everything he did, and that's funny. So I do like this Thor. I think it's a good arc for him. It's a good character spot. So I'm on board. I really, really hope they make a Fat Thor Funko. That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah, and
I was interested that they followed through with that decision as much as they did, because I was thinking, okay, 3/4 of the way through the movie we're gonna get Chris Hemsworth buff Thor, and we just never did. So they followed through with it.
We did, but we didn't. We didn't, but he was in the movie. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm okay with, like I said, I was talking to one of the guys on my show the other day, and we were speculating who was going to survive and who wasn't, and we're like, maybe Chris Hemsworth wants to eat some carbs. Yeah. And they let him, so that's pretty cool. Yeah,
and okay, so moving on to the next character, so Bruce Banner. So we find out at this point that him and the Hulk have merged, and so you've got Bruce Banner's brain with Hulk's body, and so he's super chill now. He's really smart, but he hangs out.
The pictures.
He takes selfies with kids now, and he eats at restaurants apparently. So what do you think about that?
I do like the Professor character.
Yes.
I think it's a good blend. I mean, because I like Monster Hulk if you're going to go full-fledged monster, like Grey Hulk.
Yeah.
Crazy. The Hulk we've gotten before where he's just kind of angry Hulk. I don't feel like they explained the defeat. I mean, they do it in one line. It's like, well, Hulk got defeated and Banner got defeated, and then we got defeated, and that's why nothing worked. But I do like smart and strong Hulk.
Yeah.
It's a good, again, a cool place to take the character. They do it in the comics every so often, and it's, I don't mind it.
Yeah. Hey, and I didn't mind it either. I liked it because I felt like it was a cool progression because, you know, in Ragnarok, you know, Hulk is now like forming sentences and stuff. So it makes sense now that if there's a 5-year time jump, he's progressed now to the point where him and Banner have kind of made an agreement. So I was cool with that. One of the other things we find out is that Tony and Pepper Potts have finally gotten married and off screen have had a daughter named Morgan Stark, which from the comics, that's kind of interesting because Morgan Stark's like his cousin who's like trying to steal his suit. So they kind of retcon that, and now it's his daughter.
Didn't they get married in Infinity War? No, they didn't because he said, Wong, you're invited to my wedding.
Yeah, because he got flown up into space before they could do it.
That's right. I forgot. Because Doctor Strange says congratulations, but it's on the engagement because he does say, Wong, you're invited to my wedding. I think Tony, so you have certain aspects for certain characters. And Tony in the MCU is the billionaire playboy philanthropist. And the casual flirting with Pepper, I think that's great. Yeah. But in the comics, Pepper and Happy are an item. Yeah. And, I'm not going to like neck beard out and be like, well, in issue 517, this happened. No. But I feel like you could have still given Tony an arc without that, but you don't have, having a kid put your stakes from here to here, and that, that's how he talks about it. He's like, this is my second chance. Yeah. I don't need to save anybody else. I've gotten my, and so we still kind of get brash Tony, ego Tony, but instead of it being his Iron Man suit, it's his daughter is what his focus is on. So it works. Like I said, I could have gone either way on it, but with what they did, I think they did a good job.
And that was kind of one of those things where, we'll get into this later on as the video goes, but I felt like that was one of those fan service moments where they were like, this isn't necessarily true to the comics, but like, since Iron Man 1 11 years ago, you've been wanting Tony and Pepper to be together, so fine, here you go. I felt like that was one of those moments.
I do have a question though about when Scott Lang came back. Yeah. He goes into the Avengers compound and Tony and Natasha are there. And he's casually asks, hey, has either of you ever studied quantum physics? But in his movies, he doesn't understand quantum physics. Yeah. I'd headcanoned it as when he was bonded with Michelle Pfeiffer, maybe he picked up some stuff.
Maybe he figured it out.
It was, because then in the next scene when they're talking to Tony, he's like, Back to the Future's time travel. Like, I felt like his character kind of was as smart as he needed to be in scenes. And that, he was comic relief when he needed to be, but in a movie with a bunch of science bros, you could have had somebody else be the science bro there. Yeah,
and I liked what they did though with Paul Rudd in this movie, because I felt like he could have really easily been like the slapstick, just kind of like what they did with Chris Pratt in Infinity War, where he was just always kind of like the butt of every joke, which he served his role as the comic relief, but they didn't harp on that too much. Like Ant-Man was also semi-serious, more serious than we've seen him be. So that was cool. So like they asked Tony at his house, like, hey, will you come back into the game with us and like help develop this technology to like possibly go back in time and fix everything? And at first he refuses, but he gets sad thinking about the fact that he's given up hope, and he sees that picture of Peter Parker, and that makes him sad enough and compels him to get back into the game. So he decides to help out the team with time travel technology after all, which kind of ushers us into the second half of the movie, where we see the heroes go on a bit of an Infinity Stone Easter egg hunt themselves. And going back in time lets us see the heroes return to many of the places they've been in the past movies. This led to several awesome scenes and cameos from old characters. We got to see Tilda Swinton return as the Ancient One from Doctor Strange. John Slattery again as Howard Stark. Michael Douglas as a young Hank Pym. Natalie Portman for a super brief cameo where I think she literally just got out of bed and walked down a hallway, and that was about it. So cool.
Well, she showed up on the red carpet at the premiere that Monday night, and everybody's like, "What are you doing here?" Because she'd been pretty vocal about, "I never want to do one of these movies ever again."
Yeah.
And so when she showed up at the premiere, all the, not just your TMZs, but your CNNs and your nerd stuff, everybody's like, "What? Why are you here?"
I thought they were going to have Thor end up with her for a second. I was thinking that they were going to go that route.
When he gives a speech about, "Oh, we're not dating anymore," but you also got Robert Redford back,
yes,
which was I don't know who all you have listed, but you also had Crossbones.
Yeah, we had
show up.
We had all the Hydra, all the Hydra guys,
which led to a great moment.
Yes,
I'll let you get there.
Yes,
yeah.
And we also had Renee Russo as Thor's mom, Frigga. We had Tom Hiddleston back as Loki, which he recreated scenes from Thor: The Dark World and the Battle of New York scene from the Avengers. And then we also had Chris Pratt. In a weird way, it was sort of a cameo, even though he's a main character in the movie. Because he was reacting the opening scene from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which I thought was a really cool callback.
Yeah, because that was a great opening. I remember when that movie first came out, that was something everybody bragged on. They're like, "Oh, it's just really cool." And then to see it from the other side, and Rhodey makes the comment, "He's a moron," or "He's an idiot," and Nebula's like, "Yeah, he is." But again, it's still really cool. And then you also have the Ebony Maw, all those characters, Black Obsidian, Cold Obsidian, whatever. I mixed all their names together, but you get all them back that we saw killed in Infinity War and stuff. So that was, even though they're not as big names as the other ones, it's like, okay, we're seeing everybody back. Yes. And that's really cool.
Yeah, and so talking about seeing everybody back, that was in large part because of those flashback sequences where we had a lot of things from movies past, like we were talking about. What were some of those things that stuck out to you? Let's talk about the Winter Soldier nods.
Oh, yeah, so there's a scene where they realize 3 of the stones, they're going back to get all the stones. Yeah. And they realize 3 of them are in New York in 2012. Yes. Because between the Battle of New York, where you had the Tesseract and the Scepter, Scott Lang is kind of our point of view character because he wasn't there. So he's like, "These guys look like bad guys. How'd you not know these were bad guys?" Yeah. And you get that great callback to the doors opening because the Hydra as S.H.I.E.L.D. agents have the Scepter, and you get that great callback to the elevator doors opening and Cap getting in there. And at first I was like, "Oh dang," because that was a great scene in Winter Soldier. That was a really cool fight scene. But then you get Secret Empire Cap, which is an even better moment. He leans over and he goes, "Hell Hydra," and you're just
that my theater was like, "Oh," whenever he did that.
Yeah, that was, it's still not even the best Cap moment, but we'll get to that. I enjoyed it. I mentioned earlier off mic that when he fights his younger self, they kind of pulled the trigger a little too early on "I can do this all day." Yeah. I felt like that was a misuse of that, but the other stuff, the stuff with the Peggy references, the Bucky references, was really cool. I really did enjoy all of that. So that whole scene was a lot of fun. Yeah. It was really neat to see everybody. And even Thor saying, "We're going to go get lunch and then go to Asgard," So it acknowledged everything. I just loved that whole scene. I'm a sucker for time travel, though, and throwback movies. And Back to the Future is one of my favorite trilogies. And even though this movie calls it something that I don't agree with, I still love Back to the Future. Yeah.
And we also, in addition to the Winter Soldier, we got a lot of stuff like you were talking to me off camera about how they seem to do a lot of callbacks to these movies that weren't necessarily the flagship Marvel movies, like Thor: The Dark World and Ant-Man. Talk to me about that.
So, I'm not a Star Wars person. Yeah. I'm a bad nerd, I know. But it's kind of my understanding that Kylo Ren is unofficially a call out to the Star Wars fandom who doesn't really know what they want, and so I thought it was interesting that some of the most important movies, like after seeing Endgame, if I had told you what movies you need to see, Thor: The Dark World, Iron Man 2, Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man and Wasp. Those are 4 of the least loved, arguably maybe the 4 of bottom of like they're higher on my list than they are on a lot of people's, but the majority of people put those in the bottom 4. I mean, or bottom 5, 10, the bottom half for sure. So I think it was really interesting of Disney and Marvel to kind of pull that trick again of, hey, you didn't like Dark World, but it's actually really important to this movie. Yeah. Hey, you didn't like Ultron, it's because that's going back to that first scene. That's what kind of kicks it all off. Is Tony's like, I said we needed a shield of armor around the world, and that was in Ultron. Yeah. So that was really, really neat. And I thought it was really cool that you expect them to talk, oh well, Black Panther or Captain Marvel or the big movies that everybody loves, Ragnarok, Guardians, and while you do get a little nod to those, the big important ones are the ones that people didn't really like. I mean, except Winter Soldier. Yeah, I feel like that's the only other one out of those 4 that I mentioned. That's the only other movie that plays a big role is Winter Soldier. Yeah, well, one of the things that and this wasn't from a movie, but it was cool. Like, so they kind of botched getting the Tesseract because Hulk runs out the door in the past New York scene and hits Tony, and so he loses it. At this point, Loki escapes, which is kind of like, okay, that might be how we get our Disney Plus show. I hope so, because that's one plot thread we don't. I mean, we're gonna talk about a few more, but that's definitely one that it's like, for this movie to wrap everything up in a box, that's one thing that they didn't. And so because of this leads them to going back to the 70s, where they infiltrate the SHIELD base, right? And it's where Captain America, I believe, actually. It's where he got like his injection. Yeah, it's where he got the serum. But we got this really sweet scene, I thought, where like Tony Stark got to have kind of this one last interaction with his dad, similar to how Thor got to have his one last interaction with his mom. And then you also have Captain America seeing Peggy's daughter, you know, and that kind of triggers the what could have been thing. You know, and especially I feel like after he sees Iron Man, after he sees Tony get that interaction with Howard, you know, that kind of makes him think a little bit more. And you get to see the giant Ant-Man helmet. I like that. I thought that was really cool. And I missed that on first viewing. Like, that was one of those where I was like watching like a 10 Easter eggs you missed video or whatever, and I was like, dang it. So that's one I've got to go back and see. Yeah. It goes by real fast, but it's right before you see. It's when Michael Douglas answers the phone. It's right in that camera pan. So. And so moving on. So a really big spoiler is that on the quest to receive the Soul Stone, Hawkeye and Black Widow have to make the same sacrifice that Thanos made in Infinity War to receive the Soul Stone, where he sacrificed Gamora. I was honestly kind of shocked that they decided to kill Black Widow. That wasn't something that I was expecting, because we'll talk about this later, but the way that she died in a way where she doesn't get to come back. Yeah. So that was kind of... Well, and you probably suffer from the same thing I do, is I have a tendency to read the trades and like kind of see what they're... I don't do spoilers, but I do industry stuff. Yeah. And so we know there's long time, Black Widow movie. Yes. And just a week or two ago, they came out and said, hey, we're making a Hawkeye show for Disney Plus, but with Kate Bishop. So in that opening scene when when Clint is like, hey, good job, Hawkeye, I was like, well, bye, Clint. I was like, that's it. And so of course, in Ultron, I would have had my money on Clint dying also, so I would have lost money twice. Yeah. But that's okay, I like Clint. Like, yeah, me too. He was one of the ones that I was hoping would survive, and he did, although it's a really interesting scene. That, to me, that's kind of a throwback to Civil War, when they meet each other in the hangar and they're like, are we still friends? Depends how hard you hit me. And they definitely have that relationship. And I think it's really interesting that they highlight it, not as like romantic relationship, but just a friendship that's so deep that they're willing to sacrifice themselves so that the other one can have a better life. And so my buddy that I saw it with the second time, that was his least favorite part of the film.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really insightful, and that way those characters get their moments, because in a movie full of literal gods, you're the two people that can't do anything. I mean, not that can't do anything, but you have no powers and everything. So they got to have their moment, and I thought that was really sweet.
I thought that was cool too. And I guess like it's not that I didn't like their decision. It was just with that Black Widow, I guess, movie on the horizon. I know the movie might be like a prequel type movie possibly, so it doesn't necessarily ruin the timeline or anything that she died. But I don't think in my brain, out of anything I could have expected to happen, that just wasn't one of them.
Yeah. And a couple of my friends have pointed out that numerous times through the movie, they keep referencing, they talk about her sacrifice, and without getting into too much stuff, they mention multiple times like, well, we can bring her back, we can bring her back, we can bring her back. So I'm really curious to see how, because they've, like, Anne Hathaway's in that movie, right? Is she got cast, or was it, they cast somebody in that movie as well, but they didn't say as who, so it wasn't Anne Hathaway, somebody younger, because it was like, is she a younger Black Widow, or or the villain, or so we'll see. I'm curious.
Yeah, and so like now that they kind of get done with all the flashback scenes, we go back to present day in the timeline, and they come back and Black Widow's gone, and so they're all kind of reeling from that, but they construct the new Gauntlet regardless. It's kind of made with like Iron Man tech, which I thought was kind of cool. They put all the stones in it, and Banner makes the snap to return everyone back that disappeared during Infinity War, which I thought was kind of cool that Banner was the one to do it, because like if you were to think logically, like who could survive that? It would be the Hulk, so that was cool.
Well, that was a good little moment too, when they're like, who's going to do it? And Thor's like, we just need to get it done. I'll do it.
Yeah.
You got cheese whiz in your veins, man. You're going to set this one out. And it makes you wonder, like, I think Thor could have survived it, though, too. Yeah. But having the Hulk, again, much like we gave Black Widow and Hawkeye their moment, that kind of gives Hulk his moment to do more than just smash. Because the scene with the Ancient One is neat, but with the whole Professor part, I mean, I feel like taking Banner out of the body, like if it was Angry Hulk, taking Banner out of the body would have been a little more impressive, but I felt like this really was kind of his moment to shine, and so I dug it.
Yeah, and then at this point, the movie was also playing with the fact that Thanos has been using this mind link that exists between the two nebulas, the nebula from the past and the nebula from the present, to kind of like track the heroes, which every single time you do, it's not that I didn't like that storyline, but it was like building so much anticipation for me, because I was like, oh crud, like their plan worked, but like I hate the fact that Thanos is literally tracking them the whole time. Like it just kind of builds suspense for the third act, and then this is where the third act kind of happens. So he literally shows up right whenever they've done the snap, and they're like, oh man, we did it, and he just like starts shooting missiles at the Avengers and just like obliterates it. Like he wipes it off the face of the earth.
And they all survive.
It
was definitely something that, it was kind of when you had two nebulas, you were kind of, and she didn't do her little teleport thing back, it was like, okay, there's very few places you can go with this. And when they did come back, although I feel like the use of PIM particles through the whole time heist gets a little, there's actual ones that show up, but it's really a shocking moment, because Hulk, he's laying there, his arms just destroyed, looking up at the sky, and he's happy that, okay, it worked. And then he just sees Thanos' ship, and just starts raining down missiles. It's one of those, it's an interesting, because he didn't give our heroes a chance to catch their breath. It was like, hey guys, I think this worked, boom, 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 boom. We're right back in it. And I thought as far as pacing and everything went, that it was a really interesting choice, because most films would have been like, hey, yeah, we made it. Make all of our phone calls, check on everybody. Oh, look, we see, like in the X-Men movies where you see all the dots start popping up. But they didn't get that moment. It was just, Hawkeye's phone rang, and then it exploded. And so I thought that was just insane, pacing-wise.
Yeah, and so, like, what did you think of the final battle that this sets up, where we get to see all the different armies and people show up? So we had the sorcerers, right, from Doctor Strange show up, the Wakandans showed up, and then the Asgardians. Well, what's left of the Asgardians, I guess, because it's probably like a fourth of what was originally left.
Like half of them died in Ragnarok, and then half of them died in the snap. I don't know how the math on the So getting to that point was really cool because we had our big three. We had Thor, Iron Man, and Cap fighting Thanos, and it was he didn't have his stones or anything. You got some really cool teamwork, and it was really neat to see those three, the ones who started it, come in. And you have the biggest fanboy moment. I talked about the Hell Hydra moment, but
I think I know what you're going to say.
Oh, yeah. So there's a moment where, when they were in the time heist, Thor got Mjolnir back.
Yes.
So he had Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. Yes. And Thanos knocks Mjolnir out of the way, and he's trying to push Stormbreaker into Thanos just like Thor did to him in Infinity War. And you see Mjolnir go up. You just see it come up, and then you see it fly through the air, hit Thanos, come back into Cap's hand.
Yes!
And all three showings, everybody in the theater lost it.
That's hands down my favorite part of the entire movie. Yeah. That one scene.
Okay. Now...
Thor says, I knew it!
Yeah.
Which is sick.
Which is a callback to Ultron.
Yes.
Because in Ultron,
he almost...
he moved it, Cap moved it just a little bit.
Yes.
So that was really cool. This is the moment where I would have loved to God I could do this all day, because Cap has this giant gash in his arm.
Yeah.
And he just...
That's what I thought he was going to say.
Yeah. And...
I was mouthing it.
I was like, this is what it is. And then you have Sam come in, I was like... And so the first 2 times I saw it, I didn't tear up. Like, I have friends who say, I cried 18 times. I didn't tear up in the first... I'm kind of heartless, I guess. I don't know. But when I saw it the 3rd time this morning... When he said Avengers Assemble, like I did, I kind of like choked up a little bit. And it's weird that it took 3 viewings to get that, but but again, we waited 8 years for that, 9 years for that, so that was a good payoff. I was surprised when they brought the sorcerers in. Yes. I didn't see that coming. The Asgardians, not just Valkyrie, but like Korg and Meek and Meek and everybody like that, was really neat. And Thanos kind of had that look on his face of, because he had just made that big speech about, now this is personal, I'm going to enjoy this. Yeah. You're screwed. You're out of luck. And so, but then when he saw all that, he was like, maybe this isn't going to be as easy as I thought it was.
You kind of tell on his face, he was like, oh.
Yeah. But I thought that moment, like I said, when we finally got Avengers Assemble, I'm not a movie clapper. I hate movie clappers.
Not about it.
Yeah. But that was one of those times I was like, if I was,
this would be the time.
Yes,
dude. And that entire sequence, like, I think they handled that battle sequence so masterfully, and I would argue that is, for me, that beats the Captain America Civil War airport fight sequence as the best comic book movie fight sequence of all time. Like that's just how I felt about it.
I mean,
because they literally
yes and no.
For me, they gave me everything I could have ever wanted. It's like, do you want to see Ant-Man the size of a mountain? Here you go. Do you want to see Captain Marvel show up and destroy Thanos' ship? Here you go. We're gonna do it like all the female characters having like one massive sequence.
So here that moment, that A-Force moment.
Yeah.
If that gets us an A-Force movie, I'm totally on board.
Which I heard that they might. There was talks about it, rumors about it.
If not, because they were all over different places of the battlefield at that time, and you kind of took Pepper away from Tony.
Yeah.
So if there's not a payoff, like, it's a cool little Easter egg. I think I was the only person in the theater that got this, because it may not have been an Easter egg, but when Cap says, Lang, how long will it take you? He's like, about 10 minutes, and Hope actually says, we're on it, Cap. And he looks at her and gives her a little smile. if you remember back in Ant-Man and Wasp, when he's talking about the whole Germany thing, he's like, I'll call him Cap. We're going to call him Cap. So in my mind, it was her being like, okay, these are your friends. Okay, we can call him Cap.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. There's a lot of good little moments in the whole Spider-Man activating the insta-kill.
Yeah, from Spider-Man Homecoming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, you get, again, lots of fan service. You get to see everybody do everything.
But I think that it was fan service in the best way. Because I think movies catch flack for, and sometimes rightly so, for being overly committed to fan service at the expense of the story. But I felt like this fan service was earned fan service.
Yeah,
it's taken 11 years to
moved the
get
story
there.
forward.
Yes.
Too. Like it wasn't just her saying, "Hey, Cap." It was like, okay, no, she's responsible. Or it wasn't like I said, unless if the A-Force doesn't happen.
Yes.
But there's a lot on there that, like it's not just, okay, we have Black Panther just because we have to have Black Panther. It's like, no, he comes in, clears away, and says, hey, Clint, throw me the gauntlet.
Yeah. Because
what they're trying to do here is they're trying to get all the stones back where they need to be because they think that will help right everything. So you get this big, nice, giant football scene, where they're just running across, throwing the gauntlet around. And of course you get Peter being the, hi, I'm Peter Parker, hey, it's nice to meet you. And, just being this starstruck kid. And I'm going to ask you a question, though. Pose a question for you. So when we get Captain Marvel coming in, because we get our Scarlet Witch moment, which is intense. And that's another moment that I was like, okay, then we get our Captain Marvel moment. We got the throwaway line earlier where she's like, oh, I probably won't be there for a while. There's thousands of other planets. But I feel like she should have been included in the time heist. Because, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, if you look at last year, we had Black Panther right before Infinity War. And Black Panther and Wakanda was huge in Infinity War. Like the whole third act was in Wakanda. And so I kind of expected the same thing.
Because they might do that with this film.
Yeah, they've been hyping up. They're like, she's more powerful than Thanos. She's the biggest, baddest, bestest character we've ever had. She has 4 lines of dialogue. So that was kind of a bummer because I enjoyed Captain Marvel. But
and we talked a little bit about this off camera, I think. But like, what I thought was really interesting is that Brie Larson actually filmed these Captain Marvel scenes for Endgame before she had done anything for the actual Captain Marvel movie. So I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. But I think that was an unfortunate side effect of the Russo brothers having her cast as that character, but not quite knowing how she was going to perform. And probably Brie Larson not knowing how to play that character fully yet, right?
Because, you had people who played these characters in multiple movies before. Because that is, I said at the end. That's the end of the Endgame question. But I do have a question for you at the end of the Endgame.
And so moving to the end of the battle sequence and kind of, playing out the rest of the movie, we see Tony Stark at the very end. This was kind of like the mother of all spoilers. He mortally wounds himself by stealing the stones real quick from Thanos and putting them on his own hand. Apparently he had installed a gauntlet onto his own Iron Man suit when no one was looking, and he had him on his hand, and he makes the snap, and he turns Thanos and his entire army to dust, which I thought was a cool scene. And I thought it was cool that they had Thanos kind of linger for a second. You can see like he's so powerful that it's taking the universe a second to erase him, and you get to have that satisfying look where he's just kind of like, dang it, I failed. Dang it. But like it was crazy though to me that like they followed through with the consequences that they had set up throughout the movie, where you see at the beginning of the movie Thanos is like, I'm so weak from these snaps, and Hulk himself is like burned to a crisp doing this. So it's like, if Tony Stark does it, he's going to die. And they followed through with that, but they did it the opposite of, like, I was a person who was speculating that they were going to let Tony Stark ride off into the sunset and Cap was going to be the one to die. And the fact that they kind of did the reverse, I was cool with it, but again, that was one of those moments for me where I was like, whoa.
Well, because I don't think we established earlier in the movie that Tony can't ride off into the sunset. Because he's like, no, I'm not helping you. But then, no, he has to help.
And so he tells Captain America, he says, you should get you a life like this. Like kind of at the beginning, they're kind of hinty.
Yeah, so they definitely set it up. I do like I chalk it up to the nanotech because we established in Infinity War that it's nanotech, so it adapted and stuff. But that when he looks at Strange and Strange just gives him the one finger, although that's another character I feel that was super underused. And like in the funeral scene, that's not been I mean, he doesn't blink or move or anything. I think it's a stand-in and they just CG'd Cumberbatch's face on it. But I thought it was really good. And the whole Thanos' thing is what is it? I am inevitable, or I think that's his line.
I am inevitable, and he says,
I am Iron Man. Okay, you end it where you started it.
Because he says that at the press conference in Iron Man 1, that's the last line of the movie. I am Iron Man. And then it ends.
Yeah, and so, harking back, I mean, this movie, like we keep saying, it's 11 years of, I wouldn't even say fan service, actually. It's 11 years of story.
Yeah.
That just happens to have a lot of fans, dedicated fans. It's 11 years of story, and it knows where it came from, both the highs and the lows, and where it started, especially in this scene. My complaint, I did enjoy this movie. Like, I pick movies apart really badly.
Yeah.
Is I wish Pepper would have had more interaction with Tony.
Yeah, absolutely.
Peter gets all the attention. I understand why, because you're passing the torch to Peter.
Yeah.
Presumably he's going to be leading the Avengers, or at least or doing something. But you establish that Tony is his family man now. Like I said, he's not the billionaire playboy anymore. He doesn't have any lines to anybody, actually. He just kind of gargles and that's it. I wish he and Pepper would have had a closing moment there, which you kind of get in the recording, but
and for me, so we'll talk real quick about. So I mean, you also get a payoff with Captain America. He has his ride off into the sunset moment where he returns all the stones back to their exact points in time so that they don't mess everything up. But he doesn't come back, and then all of a sudden you see him sitting on the bench, and he's elderly. Mm-hmm. And it turns out he went back and got to have his long-awaited, much-rewarded payoff where he got to return and have that last dance with Peggy Carter that she asked for in Captain America, the First Avenger.
Right.
Which, sent goosebumps, because, I'm a big Captain America fan. He was my favorite Avenger, so I was so stoked. But, it sent chills up my spine whenever he handed it off to Falcon, which I thought a lot of people were hoping it was going to be Winter Soldier. But I guess that kind of sets up the Disney Plus show, right? That they're planning with, is it Falcon and Winter Soldier?
See, and I told you my pitch for that was I wish it was them hunting Cap, through time or whatever, and them figuring out who was going to be the next Captain America, because Falcon is a hero.
Yeah.
I mean, Winter Soldier is too, but the Winter Soldier, the connotations that come with it are still, mission report and things like that. So that's why I was kind of hoping he could get it to redeem him in the public eyes, because everybody already loves Falcon. And when I say the public, I don't mean real world public, but in the universe public eyes, that people are like, oh, okay, he was this Russian spy, assassin, terrorist guy, but now he's Captain America. Okay.
Yeah.
Just to give him a little redemption. But I think that Bucky and Cap have a strong enough relationship, and that's what he knew. That's why he was like, Sam, you go ahead. You go talk to him. So, again, hopefully we'll get some payoff in the Disney Plus series.
Yeah.
$6.99 a month. I'm going to sign up for them.
Yeah. Well, man, before we wrap it all up or give our final thoughts, I'm just trying to make sure I hit everything. I think one thing that was really interesting is that at the funeral scene, it zooms in on that teenage kid. Mm-hmm. Turns out that was the kid from Iron Man 3.
Yes, that's nobody knew. Unless you went on IMDb or read spoilers.
Yeah.
You didn't
Which I thought was a really cool callback, and that's one of those ones that's kind of like you've got to be like a hardcore fan to know that just right out of the gate. One thing I thought was really interesting is that this movie, it wrapped up Iron Man and Cap storylines kind of definitively. It left Thor as kind of joining the Guardians of the Galaxy, so there's a chance we'll see him in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 maybe. It didn't do a lot for Banner. It didn't close up his story very much from what I recall.
Yeah, it did. I mean, the last things he said is when he sends Cap back in time, he makes this speech about, I try to bring Nat back.
Yeah.
I miss her. And then his next thing is, oh, he messed up the time machine again.
Yeah.
And that's all you get from him.
Yeah.
You know, I wish there's a lot of balls in the air they're trying to juggle here,
yeah.
and I get that. But you know, you advance the Guardian story, like you said, with bringing Thor in, you get the Asgardians of the Galaxy, so that you even get Valkyrie stuff for her. The Pims you don't see though.
Yeah.
The Hawkeye's back with his family. Doctor Strange is doing whatever, but for Banner to be one of the original founding members, one of the biggest, I mean, not just physically, but literally one of the most important parts of this.
He was the one that I was surprised about. Because, like, Black Widow's dead and Hawkeye's with his family, and then we talked about the other characters, and then he just didn't have the conclusion that I was hoping that they were going to give him, I guess. This is kind of like a weird side note, but, like, I thought it was interesting that besides the conversation that Scarlet Witch has, I believe, is it with Hawkeye?
Yes.
About, hey, like, it really stinks to have a loved one gone, basically, is their conversation. That's, like, the only nod we get to Vision at all.
Well, and even then, it's Hawkeye, they're standing there at the lake, and Hawkeye says, I wish there was some way to tell her. I wish there was some way to let her know that we won. And Wanda says, she does. And she pauses and says, they both do.
Yeah.
And even then it's like, is she talking about, I mean, we have to assume she's talking about Vision.
Yeah.
But her brother died in Ultron.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of, again, that definitive closure. It's heavily implied, and, even if she would, if instead, if he's like, I wish she knew. I wish I could tell Nat, and even if she said, yeah, Viz does too.
Yeah.
At least get a name drop in there.
Yeah.
That kind of. It didn't irk me, but I'm kind of like you. Like should have had something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but I guess even with all that said, I feel like for me it's easy to remember the negatives the most. But I guess kind of bringing it all home, I felt like. For me, this is just my final opinion on the movie after literally walk through it and nitpicking the heck out of it for 45 minutes. But I felt like this movie had a tall order. I mean, it had to, one, be its own standalone film, which it was in a lot of ways, which I was surprised. I thought that this might be a Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 type of deal, where it doesn't feel like it's its own movie. It literally feels like it's picking up in the middle of the last movie. But it wasn't. It really had its own tone set apart from Infinity War. So it had to be its own film. It had to be the bookend to this massive 11-year saga, the 22nd film, I believe, and it had to give satisfying conclusions for all of those storylines and the characters that we hold near and dear. And then fourth, it had to be a springboard for what's to come. With all of that, even 3 hours I don't think is enough to do all of that. And so for what they accomplished with the 3-hour runtime, which didn't necessarily feel very sluggish, for me it felt like it went by really fast, I think they really stuck the landing. I thought the first 2 hours could sometimes be a little bit slow as they were building the world, but that last hour, man, it just stuck the landing hard. And it was so satisfying. I had kind of like a chill moment where it just I realized that I saw the first Iron Man whenever I was in 8th grade, and I'm sitting in the theater watching the end of this story with my pregnant wife sitting next to me. Yeah. And I was just like, man, what an era. The end of an era. Yeah. It's crazy.
Almost half of your life, almost a third of my life. Yeah, it's...
Yeah.
Again, I know I've nitpicked a lot here, and seeing the movie as many times as I have, and I'll probably see it again.
Yeah, that's awesome.
To me, it was two different experiences. When you're in the movie, it's more than a film. I mean, it's so great and so amazing that I didn't even care about. With the exception of one or two little things I noticed every time that bugged me, but I didn't care.
Yeah,
because I was there for the Endgame. like Tony says, and every story has an ending, and this was it. But when I get out of the movie and talk with entertainment friends, film friends, comic book friends, it's like, well, there was parts there.
Yeah.
And that being said, right now it's not in my top 5 of my. We do lists on the show all the time, so I'm a sucker for ranking and lists. It's in my top half.
Yeah.
For sure. I don't know. I'm still unboxing it all. Because it's only been out for less than 24 hours officially, as of this recording. And so trying to process, I have 9 hours of movie in my head that I'm trying to...
You've got to sort through.
Yeah.
I feel that, man.
I enjoyed it a lot. Like I said, I will see it again, probably multiple times. I'll get the Steelbook 4K. As much as the movie is flawed, its perfections and payoffs and everything outweigh the flaws for me.
Yeah, I feel like this movie, one thing it's probably going to struggle with just a little bit is that there's going to be that fan out there who was kind of a casual fan and they saw Infinity War. That was maybe one of the only movies they'd seen. And they were like, man, I really like this. So they came into this movie hoping that it was going to be a Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 2 type of situation where it had the same feel. And it's just not.
No.
And that's okay. But this movie is one of the only MCU movies I can say where the Russo brothers and Kevin Feige were just kind of like, if you haven't seen the other movies leading up to this one, we're sorry. This one's for the fans.
Yeah.
And this one was very much just for the dedicated fans who have bought the movie tickets, which I really liked, but I could see how for a lot of moviegoers out there, they're going to leave and go, that was all right.
It's a standalone movie in the sense that it's not part 2 as they originally announced it, but yeah, all these movies we've been talking about, if you hadn't seen at least some of them, you're lost. Just don't go see it.
No,
I hate
and
to say
that final hour is not going to mean anything.
Yeah. Well, the second act where you're going back to these other movies.
Yeah, that's not going to mean anything.
Yeah, it's like, why are there 2 Iron Mans? Why is Loki? Who is Loki?
Yeah.
That's, if you've only seen Infinity War, Loki dies in the opening scene, so... It's not for the faint of heart, the faint of bladder, or anything like that. But, I give it, unless you've been living under a rock and hadn't seen these movies, I give it some of the highest recommendations I could possibly give.
I'm in that boat, and whenever you were talking about rankings, I pulled out my iPhone, because I was literally like, so my top 5 are Captain America Civil War, the original Avengers Infinity War 3rd, Captain America the Winter Soldier is my 4th, which is kind of interchangeable sometimes. I really love the Winter Soldier. And then Thor Ragnarok's my 5th. That's where we differ probably a lot. But for me, Endgame is probably right at the edge of my top 5 depending on the day. Because my 6th favorite is Iron Man 1. Mm-hmm. For me, I would put it right there at that caliber of quality. Which is cool to say, because I think that's the first, and then for me the last.
So by your list, it's the weakest Russo brothers movie.
Probably.
I agree with that.
Probably.
I do, but it's just kind of interesting how...
Yeah.
A bad Russo brothers movie is like cold pizza. I'm still going to enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome. And so I loved it. I loved it, man. And I'm one of those fans that comes at it from the perspective of like, there's not a movie in the MCU that I just absolutely don't like. Like even Thor: The Dark World, which is like almost universally agreed upon to be one of the weaker links. Mm-hmm. I don't just absolutely hate that movie. I wouldn't say that I'm like have this urge to go watch Thor: The Dark World right now, but I don't hate it. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I view this list. Is like there's not just because one isn't in the top 10 doesn't mean I don't like it. So for me to say that this one's like my 6th or 7th is a really glowing recommendation in the context of all 22, which are all fairly okay. You know?
Like I said, Ragnarok's close to the bottom, but even like the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
And I love Ed Norton. It's not a bad movie. None of these are bad movies. And people will get out there and say, oh, well, it's a horror. No, none of these are bad movies. They just may not be your favorite, but you know what? Maybe that one's not for you.
Yeah.
You don't like Thor Ragnarok? Okay, cool. Here's literally 20 some odd other movies you can watch.
Check them out. Yeah, and there's a movie in the MCU for everybody, whether it be the espionage thriller of the Winter Soldier, going to just the all-out craziness of Guardians of the Galaxy 1, just the psychedelic nature of it. Like, there's a movie for everybody in the MCU, and but man, we've come to the end of an era. It's a big deal that we're here, and I'm interested to see where the MCU goes from here and what it's going to look like. I'm a little nervous, to be honest. I'm kind of hoping that the quality doesn't take a hit. I'm hoping that now that the Infinity Saga is over, that Kevin Feige doesn't kind of just go on autopilot now.
Yeah, well, there's three things. I guess kind of close. One, I'm with you. I hope they don't put all their eggs in the Disney Plus basket.
Yeah.
And I know Feige and company, that's probably not their say or their choice, but I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Far From Home is supposed to technically be the end of Phase 3.
Yeah.
The epilogue. There's arguably as much riding on that movie's shoulders as there was Endgame.
Yeah.
Because it's...
In terms of a Phase 4.
Yeah. And lastly, for this to springboard, we didn't get any new characters.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know where you would have put them, but...
Well, we got some possible... I guess we didn't get any just outright new characters, but we got some nods to the possibility of like some young Avengers.
Right.
Like Hawkeye's daughter, Scott Lang's daughter, a bunch of daughters.
Yeah.
And Morgan Stark.
Yeah, so the A-Force and Pepper finally becoming rescue and everything. So yeah, I'm excited. Cautiously optimistic. I guess that's a phrase I use a lot when it comes to things like these. But I am cautiously optimistic about Far From Home.
Me too, and I'm looking forward. Like one of the big plot holes that they're going to need to explain is. For Peter Parker, it doesn't seem like the 5-year time jump applied to his school, because he met up with his friend Ned and like everything was just normal.
Yeah.
But for Scott Lang, like Cassie hit age 5 years. At least, yeah. Like she straight up looked like she was like 18 when she answered the door. I was like, what? So it's gonna be interesting to see how or if Far From Home addresses that.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting for sure. I can't, but again, they haven't let me. Kevin Feige is one of those people that I don't trust him when he says things.
Yes,
but he has all of my trust.
Yes, and he had. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but he had worked on 13 Marvel movies before the existence of the MCU. So that's the difference between him and like someone like Kathleen Kennedy over at Lucasfilm, where like she was just like, hey, here's The Force Awakens, go for it. And she's kind of like, I think I understand the fandom, and I think I understand what they want. And then The Last Jedi and Solo, a Star Wars story, come out where all the fans are just like, what the heck, But so Kevin Feige had 13 movies to kind of like play with the sandbox and go, okay, they reacted negatively to that. Okay, I'm going to do less of that. And the MCU is just a masterclass in storytelling of him going, I've got my finger right on the pulse of what the fans want. So if anyone could pull it off, it's him. That's why I'm hoping he doesn't go on autopilot after this. Because I sure would. I'd be like, hey man, 22 movies, peace out.
see how big my house is? Like, I don't need more money.
I know. I sleep on a mattress filled with $100 bills.
Yeah.
So, but man, so glad to have you here, Lance.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Why don't you tell my audience, man, about your podcast, where they can find it?
So we're all over the internet. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We're on some stuff that I don't even check anymore. But whatever's hot at the moment, that's what we try and get on. But just look for The Night Nerd. We're on there. We're a daily podcast. We're actually a network of podcasts. I have a Monday through Friday show where I pick a different topic every week and break it down. Monday we talk video games, Tuesday TV movies, Wednesdays comics, Thursdays history, and Fridays take fan questions or talk about what's on the pulse. Last week we did Leonardo da Vinci. We've done when Hugh Hefner passed away. We talked about him. Just kind of whatever is relevant. Obviously Endgame right now.
Yes.
And just go give us a like. We have a lot of cool stuff coming in the shoot. We actually have some really cool YouTube stuff that I hope people will enjoy, that blends nerddom and I don't want to say boozers, but booze. Like we're doing all the Assassin's Creed wines and the Game of Thrones beers and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Kind of flavor tasting those and stuff. So, but yeah, just look for the Night Nerd. We have stickers, we have merch. Local conventions, we're actually, if you're at a Texas convention, we're probably there. We do Lubbock, Dallas, Houston, Amarillo, Denton, all those. Just hit us up, and I'd love to meet you, hang out, love to talk to you. Just come check us out.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being with us, Lance. And if this is your first time checking out the YouTube channel, feel free to give it a subscribe and share with your friends if they're interested in Endgame. And be sure again to share his podcast with your friends as well that are interested in all things comic books, video games.
Yeah, you name it, we do it.
Well, thank you so much again, man. And
thanks for having me.
Hope you guys have a great week as always. I'll see you next week.